Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Acupuncture is My Life. Now, in this episode, I want to ask you a question. Let's see if you can answer it. But I definitely want to ask you a question. It may take you some time, but it's okay. And that question is, can you tell if your brain is actually aging faster than you are? Can you? And you see, this is an important question to be asked because, many individuals experience various symptoms that are indicating that their brain is aging faster than they are, and they become overly concerned, which is understandable. Which is definitely understandable. But they have no understanding that their brain is actually aging faster than them. And see, the cool thing about it is, the irony of it all is, they stumbled into Acupuncture is My Life clinic here in New York City, concerned with that. And many individuals present with certain symptoms that it's obvious that their brain is aging faster than they are. And they have no clue, and they don't understand. The best turn to make is going to see an acupuncturist right away. And because there's so many out there globally that are unaware of this, it's why I'm doing this podcast today. You'll get individuals who, as they're aging, are concerned with memory loss. But that's normal. That comes with normal aging. If the deterioration is in line with how you're aging, it's normal. It's not something that's, you can't let's say, I don't know, you're 70 something and you can't remember. You're 74 and you can't remember something you did when you were 2 years of age. That's quite all right. That's quite all right. And then I'll get those that have met someone who's like 102 years of age and their memory is sharp. That's great too. And more times than not, it's a good chance that person was seeing an acupuncturist for regular wellness visits, along with visiting his or her physician annually, which is why I say this over and over. I'm constantly repeating this. But understand something. There's a huge difference between normal aging and brain changes. Well, I should basically say there's a huge difference between the brain changes of normal aging and the cognitive disruptions relative to diseases like, let's say, dementia and Alzheimer's. But what you want to have as you age is a healthy brain. Because as you age, the main thing that happens is your neurons in the brain tend to slow down a bit, which causes you to take a bit longer to process new information or react to new information. And you see, when you're faced with cognitive issues that make it much more difficult to get through your day, you shouldn't take that lightly. You shouldn't accept it as a part of aging. It's a sign that you need to get to your acupuncturist or an acupuncturist right away, or even contact Acupuncture is My Life. Let's talk about, let's say, disorders of an aging brain. Short-term memory loss. Short-term memory loss can be an early warning sign of Alzheimer's disease. Because the area of the brain that deals with short-term memory, Alzheimer's disease tends to affect the most. And I mean the area of the brain that deals with short-term memory. And one of the early symptoms is short-term memory loss. I mean, it could simply include forgetting the day's events, to not being able to recall certain instructions, or repeating questions, forgetting recent conversations. These are some of the indicators. And this is usually caused by dysfunction in the medial temporal lobe. And those are usually like the first signs of Alzheimer's disease, as well as even some other brain disorders. And it's important that you know this. Now, long-term memory loss. And this would consist of remembering things that happened years or even decades ago. Now, this could be a sign that you're faced with a different type of dementia. Because let's say when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, long-term memory tends to sort of like hold out. But now when it comes to other forms of dementia, you can have more issues with long-term memory. There's multi-infarct dementia, which is usually as a result of suffering from several strokes, which affects the blood supply going to the brain and causing damage to brain tissue. Because strokes usually affects part of the brain responsible for long-term memory. And see, all of this is why it's super important to see an acupuncturist. Another is, and I hear this a lot, is do you have trouble finding words to place in a sentence when you're talking? I mean, I've seen individuals, like healthy 38-year-olds, go through that. Or you struggling with bringing up someone's name? This could be a sign of cognitive problems. Where, there's a part of the brain that controls language. And that's usually in the left temporal or either the parietal lobe of the brain. And it can be a first sign, your initial sign of, let's say, Alzheimer's disease or other neurodegenerative disorders, or what else? Structural brain lesion, or even stroke-related damage to the brain. You got to see an acupuncturist if you're going through these things. Like, even, you want to know something scary? Like, I've had a virtual session with someone who, and it wasn't too long ago, and I know he'd asked me to do a podcast on it. It was sometime last year, actually. And I didn't really want to do one at that time. I didn't want to get into it, but I'll just touch the topic, and it was his concern with screwing up his checkbook. He clearly presented with signs of problems with executive function, which tends to exist in a person's prefrontal cortex. And executive function is pretty much higher level thinking. So he was having problems managing his checkbook, along with reasoning through decisions. And I recommended an acupuncturist to him. And he's located in Ireland, and we have a few in the Acupunctures My Life network that are in Ireland. So he noticed some improvement, which is good, as a result of going to the acupuncturist in which I recommended, because, he was presenting with signs of early stages of Alzheimer's. And brain problems are huge these days, more and more. It's just, and it's affecting younger and younger individuals. It really is. And that's scary. But for him, making errors with your checkbook is not, that's not a good thing. But then also, you showing signs that you're faced with difficulties when you're behind the steering wheel of a car. That's very dangerous. Oh my gosh, the problems that can come from that. And usually it happens with those individuals with dementia. And they don't realize they're having trouble driving a car. And as you age, there are physical factors that play a part too. Joint stiffness, vision problems, Alzheimer's, and other forms of dementia is what plays into a lot of accidents, believe it or not, globally, in a motor vehicle. Issues impacting memory, and this can serve as the cause for on the road issues, decision making skills. If you're having trouble remembering how to get to a certain place that you've been to quite often over your lifespan, that's a sign that you need to get into an acupuncturist immediately. Mood and personality changes also. It's another sign that your brain may be aging faster than you are. Just this constant feeling of like down or apathetic. These should be a cause for concern, because it can be a sign of additional cognitive disorders, where a person is experiencing changes in their frontal lobe or the amygdala of the brain. Okay. But, I'm going to do quite a few episodes discussing, various types of issues with the brain that many individuals are not paying attention to. Also, balance. You're noticing you're losing your balance more often. And, and this is not just an elderly person problem. I'm seeing it more and more with individuals that are like in their 30s. And it's very scary. You know, and there are types of dementia where, you know, physical symptoms can also flare up. Like I stated earlier, multi-infarct dementia. You know, a disruption in mental function may be accompanied by loss of balance. Or abnormal protein deposits accumulating in the brain. Now, you see, something like that, sleep deprivation has a lot to do with this accumulation of these protein in the brain. And this is why I stress getting a good night's sleep so much. It's very important. Another can be, what's another? Like loss of sense of smell. That could be a sign of it, an early sign of a degenerative disorder such as Parkinson's, in the area of the brain that's responsible for smell, is also affected by Alzheimer's. Where you're having difficulty smelling coffee or cigarette smoke, which you should be drinking or smoking. You should not be. Trouble hearing is another sign. Hearing loss can be another sign of, let's say, Alzheimer's disease. These things are important for you to understand, be aware of. If you notice you're experiencing some of these issues, get yourself to an acupuncturist right away and simply make acupuncture a part of your life, okay? Because acupuncture is my life. What's yours?